February 2nd, 2018. I was working down in Fort Myers, Florida, and normal day, and my phone rang, and it said Hugh Riley on it. And my dad never calls me during the middle of a workday. The 3 times that he called me prior to that while I was working down in Florida, he called to let me know that my grandmother had passed. He called to let me know that my grandpa had passed. He called to let me know that my dog had died. And on February 2nd, 2018, when my phone rang, I said, this can't be good. And my dad tries to soften the message as best he can, and he tries to beat around the bush a little bit, asking me how I am, and I can hear his voice is cracking already, so I'm expecting something pretty awful, and it was. He said, have you talked to your sister? I said, no. He said, Maggie's sick. And I wasn't sure what he meant, and then he said, she has cancer, and it's everywhere. My sister is 2 years older than me, and so I would have been 32 at the time, and she's 34. Stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And I called my wife to pick me up from work. You know, I didn't know how to react. I wasn't crying yet. I was just sort of in shock. So she came and picked me up, and on the way home, I'm trying to tell her what I know. I hadn't spoke to Meg yet, and I'm Googling stage 4 cancer, and the first thing that kind of comes up is life expectancy, and that's when I started crying. I had to look away. They gave her 5% chance at 5 years of life. 5% chance she'd be here today. And if you know my sister, she's still here. Congrats, Meg. Nope. I had to spend a lot of time thinking about her being gone. The thought had never occurred to me to start thinking that way before that happened. There was if you're close to my family, or if you know me, back when it all went down, you know, I wanted to spend as much time as I possibly could. I wanted to be there and support her and her family. She has 2 kids and a husband. I wanted to be there to help them out as much as possible. And so I set up a GoFundMe because, you know, when you start talking about cancer treatment, it's not cheap. And insurance only covers so much. And, you know, I set up a GoFundMe, and I can't even remember exactly how much we raised, but it was an incredible amount of money that went a long way to help her treatment. But what I thought was just as important was the number of people that had reached out at the time just to leave messages, you know, just just to show that they cared, the people that chipped in. It went a long way, not just in helping financially, but it made her feel that there was a whole army behind her of people that cared and were, rooting her on. She, in the first year, there's so many unknowns, and she was doing chemo, and in my head, my head went to worst case scenario. What if she's gone in 6 months or something like that? And so I flew out to Arizona where she was getting treatment, and we spent a week together, and we went and hiked to the Devil's Bridge in Sedona in Arizona, and we went and saw the Grand Canyon, and we jumped out of an airplane together because I didn't know if that was it. I didn't know if, like many cancer treatment patients, that her vitality would start slipping. If she'd be able to do things, even if she lived another year, would she be able to do things like that? And so, in those first early days of treatment, I wanted to make sure that we spent some time together. So that was the first week I had out there, and I wanted to make a video that talked about the way I started thinking differently, and that's why I titled this, "What would what would you do if you were told you only have 5 years to live?" Because she was told she had a 5% chance of making it 5 years, and so if you only have 5 years to live, what are you going to do differently? The morning of February 2nd, 2018, I remember that my wife and I were on opposite shifts, and so I had the morning wide open without her, and I was playing video games. I was playing The Last of Us. Now I had started gradually I was not heavy into video games anymore, but like I had some free time, and I was like, oh man, I really, I have these games that I never beat. And so like I remember that at that particular time in my life, at 32 years old, I was playing The Last of Us, and I was thinking, oh, I want to beat this game. I want to, get it to a completion. I want to, get that off my list of things to do. And then Megan's diagnosis happened. And I remember once the initial shock and all the craziness of treatment kind of wound down from, hey, this is what we have to deal with, till we got into a normal pattern. I remember thinking, well, what are you going to do? Go back and beat that video game? Here, you just were presented, your sister has your same genes. Who knows if this could have been you? Who's to say you're not going to die within 5 years? My thinking became, I don't know how much time I have, but with the little time that we all have, I'd like to be doing something more important than beating The Last of Us. And so I wanted to make a video that talked about the difference in my thinking after my sister got her cancer diagnosis, to celebrate the 5-year anniversary that wasn't supposed to happen according to statistics. Here is everything that I've changed about myself because of my sister and because of the thinking that we do not have as much time as we all think we do. The picturing yourself on some deathbed when you're 80, looking back on a life that was full, maybe you don't get that long. And all those things you think you're going to become, all those things you think you're going to do, how long are you going to wait to start doing them? This video is about everything I do differently, what I was doing prior to my sister's cancer diagnosis versus what I do today. Since I started thinking, you need to live like you're dying.
Oh no! Oh gosh, I got cold hands. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know. No, it's okay. Shh.
This is Rhythm.
Hey, Rhythm. Hey. Oh, I know. You're a female, but you have no boobs. What the hell? What the hell?
Health. I was drinking every single day. I still don't think I have a drinking problem, but back then I could look back and not remember what days I had taken off of drinking, and I definitely immediately started thinking, I need to make sure that I am taking more days off drinking than days on.
Okay, so I just got out from my liver biopsy, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. It still sucked. They had to go through my lung or something too, so now I gotta be monitored for 2 hours and make sure it doesn't collapse. So it should be interesting what that biopsy comes back at, because I've never been very kind to my liver through these years, so I'm kind of nervous about that one. And then and then we're done for the day. So
smoking. I still every now and again dabbled in the occasional cigarette for when I was drinking. I enjoyed the extra buzz you got. I love the head change. It sort of enhanced the experience. But smoking, I wrapped that up. I wanted to get that completely off my plate back then. Running. I hated running, and I really didn't want to, but I realized that lifting weights or doing sort of body weight exercises at home, it does things for your physique and for your appearance, and it can be beneficial for keeping down body fat or whatever. But running was something I told myself I was going to start doing, and if I could credit one thing for changing the way I feel, pre-running, I remember feeling sluggish. I remember feeling tired. I remember being exhausted when I'd wake up. I remember being tired in the afternoons. Running changed my energy levels. It changed the way I felt. It was a very physical, I feel good throughout the day feeling when I would run. If I didn't run, I didn't notice this wave of euphoria. When I did run, I would feel it throughout the day, especially in the mornings after the run. I would feel waves of euphoria, like well-being, mental clarity, energy, and I hadn't felt like that in years. But it started after I started running. And so if you're looking for motivation, for one, I hated running so much and I was out of shape so much. On my very first run, I did not finish a mile. I remember I took a screen grab of the app that was tracking me. And I remember I kept looking down at my phone while I was running, like, is it a mile yet? Is it a mile yet? And I just got to a stopping point. It was 0.96. I just gave up at 0.96 of a mile because I was so out of breath. So my very first run, I couldn't even do a mile. Now, 5 years later, I did the Key West half marathon last January, signed up to do the Pittsburgh half marathon. It's become part of who I am, and I would credit running I feel better now than I did when I was a kid. When I was pre-drinking, pre-smoking, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you're just full of energy all the time, full of excitement. You're not stressed. It's like being a worry-free kid again whenever you get runs in. So that was one thing that changed. Diet. I was eating absolute crap there. I remember prior to moving to Fort Myers, my morning routine was extra large coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel, and hash browns. So, I mean, the extra sugar in the coffee, the hash browns, deep fried hash browns, I started consciously thinking about what I was eating. I don't think I eat that well now, but there are things that I said, hey, I actually think about my decisions when I'm eating now. I make smarter choices. I'm not just throwing a bunch of crap in my mouth. I remember for the longest time, through all my 20s, my lunchtime diet was always fast food. It was always fast food. Long John Silver's, Arby's, big whatever, lots of fries, soda, throw it at me. My diet is now, I skip breakfast for a couple reasons. I started listening to a lot of different resources, whether it was online or whatever, just about intermittent fasting, keto. I can't do keto because I love beer and I love bread and I like carbs. So keto was kind of out, but I did want to start emphasizing, eating better foods, adding fruit, adding vegetables. These weren't a priority for me for the longest time. I literally ate like fast food, nothing but fast food, or microwave stuff. And then, I started incorporating vegetables and fruit and less deep fried things. And then skipping breakfast, along the same thinking, when you enter your 30s, and I guess this just keeps getting worse, but your energy starts to wind back, and you start getting more and more tired. And the part that I noticed the energy levels drop off significantly was at lunch. When I ate lunch, it was like, oh my God, I need a nap after this. And when I would skip breakfast, there's two things happening. One, That's one less meal that I'm paying for. Two, I'm not starving. When I would eat breakfast at like 8 a.m., I remember I would get to work and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm already starving. I am, ready to have my lunch at 11, which means I'm going to be starving again at like 3 after I eat this. And so that was one of the things that I started experimenting with. Go without, if there's a bit of an adjustment period where you're uncomfortable, where you feel hungry in the morning. And I'm not going to try to sell you on whatever benefits are touted from intermittent fasting. You can do your own research on that. YouTube is all about, what I'm not going to make scientific claims. I'm just simply going to state that when I started skipping breakfast, I started feeling better. I started having energy, especially in the mornings, but throughout the day as well. I didn't notice the drop off in the afternoon as much, probably because my lunch didn't need to be as big. It wasn't like, when you get past that initial I'm hungry and you kind of just let it stay down there and you ignore it, you keep yourself occupied, you keep busy at work, and you'll just kind of like ignore it. But if you can get past that, you don't feel when it's time to finally eat, you're not sitting there like, oh, I want to have a buffet of Chinese food. I just need, something simple for lunch. And so I think because of that, the weight after lunch, I didn't feel as much, and I didn't get as lethargic. Sleep schedule. I think my bedtime before my sister's cancer diagnosis was, between 10. I would stay up sometimes and drink and watch Netflix until midnight or so. That's not exactly the healthiest. I still don't want. I don't want to make it sound like I became very strict on myself. But I started thinking differently, and the majority of the time, this is what I obey. I was completely on the opposite pendulum, like drinking and going to bed and smoking a cigarette and staying up till midnight were common. I still enjoy staying up and binging Mad Men, but I don't do it 4 or 5 nights a week. I do it like Friday night or Saturday night. I might do something like that, or not even like once every couple weeks, once a month or something. Flossing, taking better care of my oral hygiene. You can do your own research on this, but there are a lot of ties to different diseases, different problems that you can have, mental issues late in life with poor oral hygiene. So I make an effort to floss every single day, brushing my teeth at least twice a day, using mouthwash. It's not something that I picture crashing after a night of drinking and smoking and eating chips and just like waking up the next day. God, the feel in your mouth after something like that. I'm glad I haven't experienced that in a long time. So I wanted to make the video to celebrate my sister, who I love and think the world of, her 5 years on this earth. Congrats, Meg. You're somebody I deeply admire and I think about all the time. Meg and I are gonna get back to having conversations about, her life and, what we're doing with the short time we have. I make every decision every day based on the thinking that I don't have a lot of time left. I'm not going to wait till the someday. Every single thing I do now is steered by, I don't want to wait any longer. And that's why I quit my career. That is why I started a business. That is why I run every day. That is why I call family members all the time. That is why I take every Friday off and spend it with my daughter. I don't want to spend the majority of my life doing things that aren't meaningful. And so I just wanted to thank my sister and remind her of what she has inspired me to do. Love you, Megs.